Hello, I'm Peter Kessler. Throughout the long history of golf, players have tried to perfect the golf swing. There are so many intricacies to the swing: the grip, the takeaway, keeping it on plane, not breaking down at impact, alignment, tempo, rhythm, timing. And when you look back on the game's illustrious history, the swings we admire include Jones, Snead, Hogan, and Nicklaus. No one has mastered the swing or the game. The one golfer who perhaps came the closest was Ben Hogan. He set the standard when it came to practicing the swing. Hour upon hour he worked on his game. Long after he retired from tournament play, Hogan continued to search for the one key ingredient that would allow him to hit the ball perfectly every time he pulled the trigger. What was it that Hogan worked on? On the Swing Revealed Part 2, Jim McLean analyzes and breaks down several Hogan swings: short irons, mid-irons, and drives. By watching these swings, many of which have never been seen before, and several of which are being analyzed for the first time, maybe you will unlock the secret to making your swing the best it can be. And to help you better understand what Hogan was doing, the swing is shown at different speeds, over and over again, so you can study the movements that elevated Hogan's ball striking ability to legendary status. Watch this DVD over and over again. Study the movements Hogan made and listen to Jim McLean. The lessons you learn could be the most valuable in your pursuit to improve your game. Now, McTeague Champions is proud to present the Ben Hogan Collection and the Swing Revealed Part 2.
Of all the new film that Tom McCarthy has accumulated, this, I believe, is my favorite Hogan piece right here. And this is from the late 40s, probably 47, 48, or the beginning of 49, right in that area, before the accident. And you can see how Hogan has the club off the ground. This is a sort of a starting point. Great picture of his grip and his stance. And I'm going to play through here, and we're going to look a little bit at his waggle. Now, this is something that I pointed out in my presentation, how when he did his waggle, he bent the left arm. That's different from the book. Very small little point, but I think it's very important. Look how much he's opened that club face and how much break he has in the wrists. This is mostly done with the arms and wrists, not with the body. This is his preliminary moves. Now he just barely puts the club down, regrips the club. Now he's setting his feet and looking to the target. Again, picks the club up right there, breaking the elbows. There's the real famous Hogan waggle right there again, just before he's getting set to go. Now, just before he goes, he has this little forward move. Look at that right knee. See that little move right there? There it is again. That's a little move toward the target that gets Hogan started. Again, super important. Not many people have talked about that. Now, you can see the beautiful setup right here. Very relaxed. You'll see him start to cock his head to the right. See it right there? Now you need to be left eye dominant to do that, which Hogan was. And there's his start away, and you can see it's very much a one piece, almost a slight drag. Let's just look at that a couple times. Phenomenal footage here. Probably the best I've ever seen of Hogan. To me, that's a little move to the side. Again, Hogan talked about the head being the hub of the swing. Actually, he moved his head away from the target. You can see it right here. It turns and moves, shifts. See the guy behind him there? Right back there, you can see him. So if you watch that point, you can see how his head moves a little bit to the right or away. So anyone that said he had a reverse pivot, I just don't believe has ever really studied the Hogan golf swing. And I have heard teachers say that. Now here Hogan gets to the top. He's playing the best golf of his life at this stage of his career, just dominating the game. And look how far this club goes back. Again, remember, he took it back further with his fairway woods and driver than he did with his short irons. It'd be difficult to see a body in better position than this. And there's that two-way move where he's definitely going forward while the club's still hanging back there. There's no effort to bring the hands and arms forward. The body is pulling the club. Now look at this. You can see the right elbow underneath the left arm. And that right elbow is very much in a down position. You can also see a very square club face right there, starting down. Okay, here he comes into that slot position where he's got this club where he can hit the thing as hard as he wants to right here. One other point, Hogan wanted to get the left knee on top of the left foot. And of course, he's done that right there. He's pushing off big time with the right, off the right foot, but the knees still have separated. That's because this left side has moved so hard forward with lateral motion, and you can easily see that with the lines, how far forward he's gone. Look how he's pushed up out of the ground with that right foot, right heel off the ground, has not hit the golf ball yet. There he's smashing this golf ball. And you can again see him stretching up with that right side. And again, very important piece right here to look at his wrists and hands, where they're down. He kept that club head lower, longer than anyone I've ever studied. That's a big piece of the Hogan golf swing. A great extension and the position of the wrists and right arm going through. Look at that great connection between the upper left arm and the body. The left shoulder moving out of sight right here. It's already gone. So he's rotating like crazy going through here, which is giving him a lot of speed. Again, see that still that extension of the right arm here, almost fully extended. And look at how much the hips have come up from impact to finish. And of course, there's the Hogan finish that so many people have copied. It's just very difficult to see a swing that could possibly look better than this. It's so athletic and so majestic that this is a picture you could watch about 10,000 times. Here's another unique piece of footage from Tom McCarthy, just fantastic. 1956 U.S. Open, in which Hogan will finish second. Had a great shot to win this U.S. Open at Oak Hill. The year before, he lost in a playoff to Fleck at 55, so he's kind of at the end of his unbelievable streak of U.S. Opens. But he's going to hit the ball fabulously all week. Now, what I'd like you to look at here is this beautiful triangle at setup. This is maybe a 6 or 7 iron he's hitting right here. We're going to be able to see some wonderful things. Also, the triangle from the legs at the bottom, a little pyramid down here. So he stacks up beautifully. Look at this triangle on the takeaway. Everything moving together. And look at the space between the right elbow and the body. So that's a pretty wide takeaway with a reasonably short golf club right here. Not much happening with the lower body. He's braced up really well. He's got a lot of differential between the shoulders and the hips. We call that the X factor right there, and it's so easy to see. Hogan drops his head slightly in the backswing and really kind of loads into a really solid right leg. Again, look at the amount of wrist set at this stage in the swing, 3/4. Now you can see him moving forward as the club's going back. Look how much Hogan shifts that way. Let's take a look at that again. Well, he is fully over to the left leg. There's no way he's not going to hit this ball on a downward strike. Look at the left wrist. He's got that major bow. Bam! Hits the golf ball. That's called a line of compression from the left arm down to the shaft. It's kind of a straight line right there. And there's his extension. Again, very reminiscent of the backswing, where the triangle is very much intact. Eyes beginning to look toward the target, right over onto his left leg, up on the left toe, eyes at the target, balanced. And another great example of the things we're trying to look for in the Hogan golf swing. Here's another piece from the 1956 U.S. Open, and again, he's playing great. You can see the setup here. He picks the club up, getting into position. Nice piece of film from down the target line, though. You can see how he's got it set up a little bit on the toes. He'll slide it out somewhat here as he really prepares. But Watch the little movements that Hogan makes as he gets ready to take this golf club away. There he slid that club out. Now he's ready to take it away. And again, you can see almost that little drag takeaway. Almost the hands moving first, but certainly the club and hands all together. Beautiful picture of the club right in front of his chest and right in the triangle right there. That's a great picture. You can really see it right there. Also, what I like to look at right here is the angle on the shoulders. Or you might say right shoulder up. That's the way that Ken Venturi described it to me. Now, this again is a short club right here, so will not be a long backswing, but you're definitely going to see Hogan drop the club head to the inside or onto a different plane. Or you might say dropping it into the slot. And that's that incredible position that he gets on the downswing. It's like delivering a punch. That right arm is in tight to the body on the downswing, where he has a tremendous amount of power. You'll notice here how the club appears to be laid off. That's because the club is taken back shorter, although Hogan definitely did lay it off just a little bit. You can also see the club face right there in a slightly open position, a little cup in that left wrist. That's something that he worked on. He did not want that club face closed. Didn't want that hook in there, that's for sure. Now there the club drops in. Wow. Great look at the Hogan move coming into impact. Right here you might notice how the shaft is right on his right forearm. Coming down to hit it. Look at that left wrist. Wow. See the little bow in there? Look at him rolling off the right foot. Again, this is a mid to short iron. Maybe a 5 or 6 iron. Beautiful picture there of Hogan. Look how much he's cleared the hips. This is well after the accident. Still a very powerful move with the lower body. Great picture of the club right there. Look how the hands are staying in close to him as he goes away. They're not flying off his body, moving away from him. They're staying right in sync. So we'll watch that again. His body's turning and the club stays right with him. Now at this point right here, we'll watch the shaft exit. What I call it, where the shaft comes out. Look how close it is to the shoulder plane right there. And then he lets the club relax. Again, not quite a full finish, but I think that, again, shows us some wonderful things. Look at the spine tilt, still in there. The knees close together, up on the right toe. A nice triangle at the finish of his swing as well. And fully balanced over on the left side. Here's a slightly different angle on a Hogan. 1956. I'll play this through a little bit quicker this time. Again, you see the movements and the motions, the preparatory moves. And this is a little closer down the line. You can see his caddy out there. That's kind of a fun swing to watch. Again, the camera's from just outside, handheld camera. But what great footage. 1956. Very interesting pictures to look at. You see the weight shifting toward the right heel a little bit. Look how low he loads this golf club. And then it goes even lower here, starting down. There's that little move. Going to the second plane. He talked about that in 5 lessons. Definitely part of the great Hogan fundamentals. Beautiful picture halfway down. Unbelievable. Look at the right elbow in, right in front of his hip. The right arm still bent. He's coming into impact. It's starting to straighten out. And this right arm's going to straighten out through impact. And a lot of extension there. And there he goes to that great Hogan finish. The ball's coming out of there like a bullet. The caddy's not moving too much. And Hogan will go on to finish in second place in this U.S. Open, 1956. Here's another really great picture from 1956. It's not dead on. It's a little out in front of him. So that makes it look like the golf ball's back in his stance, which it is definitely is not. But again, we can look at his pre-shot routine, the motion. Look at his footwork right there where he turned that left toe out, picks the club up, and he's getting set. Now I'm going to be able to show you some other things here. There's the Hogan waggle. copied by so many people. And what I'd like to look at here is the beginning of the backswing and the shoulder turn. Now, as he goes away, look at that space right here between the right arm and the body. Really neat thing to look at. And what I'd like to also look at here is the shoulder rotation, how much he winds the upper body against a braced lower body. Again, not that much wrist break at all, even to thigh high with his hands. Right in this section, he really starts to set that club, big time, right in there. Look at that shoulder turn. Now there he's really loaded beautifully into the inside part of the right leg. Left knee still moving back. Now in this section, you'll start to see the reverse of the lower body, the two-way action right here. See the lower body moving. Very distinct. I'll just click back a couple. Here we go. Here it goes. You can still see that club back. So he's definitely moved forward. And again, a little longer club. You can see where he's got this shaft almost to parallel. 1956. There's the lowering. Watch this little move right here, how the club sort of sinks. And that's in response to the shifting of the lower body. Now look at the amount of angle on those wrists. What a great picture this is. Now, you think that club's not behind him coming down? Yeah, very reminiscent of Sergio Garcia in modern times. There's the same sort of look. Most great players come close to looking like this, but none more than Hogan. He's had so much delay, so much lag in his golf swing, and he did it with such great motion, great athleticism. Here he comes in to hit it. You're going to see this golf club get right back in front of him right here. So he's not dragging it through. He's releasing the golf club. You can see the nice release right there. Everything really together here. Look at this. Just beautiful. Obviously the center of his lower body, the belt buckle well out in front of his nose. That's a lot of motion with the lower body right there. Here he goes through. And then look at this great looking finish. Ben Hogan. Just majestic. This is old Super 8 movies. Really neat stuff. And this is Hogan pitching the ball. I think it'd be good to look at this a number of times. We'll replay this numerous times for you. But let's point out a couple things right here. Look how close his hands are to his body. Look at the angle on the shaft, the feet close together, and the hand position right here. He'll return that club right back to that position. Now, as he takes that club back, let's look at that again. I'll just replay that. Watch how the club head opens up. And this is a big key to pitching the ball well. That club rotates what appears to be to an open position, but it's really kind of rotating onto the arc of the swing. You must make that move to really pitch the ball great right there. Do not hood the club. Here he comes into impact. Bam, now he returns those hands pretty much right back to where they started. The difference might be a little flatter left wrist at impact. That's perfect little impact position. Now from here, he just kind of rotates his body through. This is something that Ken Venturi spent a lot of time with me on with his pitching, and very similar to Hogan right there. You can see how the cigarette, which he kept in his mouth, he's still smoking, rotates with the club. So let's replay that. There is no effort to lift the ball into the air, ladies and gentlemen. That is a downward strike. Just nipped a little grass right there. Watch the cigarette move with the club. He loses no angles coming through. Little pivot of the hips. Definitely a lot of pivot with the upper body and the shoulders, and the eyes track the golf ball. Now, he also spent time with Johnny Revolta, and he said he learned quite a bit from Revolta, and Revolta was an expert on these short shots too, and advocated the eyes following the golf ball. So we're not trying to keep our head down. Look at that picture. That ball is just off the club, well up in the air, and the eyes are tracking the golf ball. This is Ben Hogan again at Augusta, 1967, where he played a great tournament. Interestingly, this is Claude Harmon, his good friend, watching him hit shots. He's hitting a short wedge shot here. One really interesting thing you'll see as we play this swing is the amount of motion in the right knee. both ways. We see very soft arms at address, the feet very close together, the toes pointed in the same direction. Claude watching intently as Hogan hits this shot. Now as we go back, very interesting here to see the amount of wrist set that he has. And look at that right knee. So the right knee does not stay exactly flexed in one position. It does stay flexed, you'll see that. But it has motion. Look at the wrist set there. The right elbow is bent. The wrists are set, and you can see Hogan's definitely moving forward. Again, this is just a small shot. There's the bowed left wrist. That was a big thing that Mr. Harmon talked to me about that he noticed with Hogan. Huge thing. He felt was a tremendous fundamental to the golf swing is that bowed left wrist. Boy, you can see it's so good right there. Bam, there's the hit. The right hand crossing over the left. The relaxed right leg, right knee, Hogan thought was very important. And up to the finish. Beautiful little shot. Again, this is 1967. And we have a good shot here. Again, a handheld camera. Great footage of Hogan. I want to point out some things here. Notice how you can see the left hand, which means he does not have the left hand out forward. It's a very comfortable, natural setup, and you can see some sliver of the left arm right there. Notice the slight flex in the knees, and look at the posture. A straight back up to about the area between the shoulder blades, then a little curve to the top of the shoulders, then another line out to the top of the head. It's definitely not a straight line from the tailbone to the top of the head. We're looking at a number of things here from the back view. One would be the take back and the return of the shaft. So you can see that takeaway. The club's definitely going inside and up. But at this stage, notice how the club head is right out in front of his chest and his hands. The thing that's taking the club to the inside is the triangle. He's not independently putting the hands into play here, taking the club inside. Okay, as he goes into his backswing, we look at this 3/4 back position. This is where Hogan has really set the club at this stage. Really staying in his spine tilt right there. You can see the weight pretty obviously going a little more toward the right heel in the backswing, never out toward the right toe. It's a very small swing again, just a short iron, which he took all of his short clubs back shorter. As he got longer, he'd take the club back further. So a short iron, you're going to be down with the right foot, not nearly as much action with the short shot as a long iron or driver. Great shaft return right there, as Hogan always did. And now you can see him coming up out of the ground, using his legs. And one thing I'd like to point out here is the angle from the middle of the head down to a point on his belt, center of his back right there. Definitely a little angle toward the target line. That was just a small shot from right down the target line. Real good view right there. I thought it'd be interesting to look at Ben Hogan from the back view. This is 1967. He's 55 years old here. As the club is taken away, and this is a handheld camera, so there's a little bit of movement here. We can see things working away together. I'm going to run that back. You'll see a little motion in the legs here. If you look carefully, you'll see a little motion in the legs as the club is taken away in a one-piece action. Hogan will break the club very quickly at about waist high. So still everything together. He's loaded into the inside of the right leg, which is his back pivot point. Now you'll see the club start to cock here. Now at this stage, right about here, you'll start to see Hogan move forward. You're going to see the hips start to shift toward the target really quite early, and it's going to happen right about now where it's starting to go forward. That's a very interesting point. Also notice here how high the right shoulder is. I always like to look at that. from the back view, the shoulder position. A lot of good players tend to duck under too much with the right shoulder. Now Hogan's moving down with the club's right shoulder still high. This is something I look at, and the way I look at golf swings, I use the 8-step swing. This is step 5 in the 8 steps. Delivery, where the club is halfway down, where you're delivering the club to impact. You can see how tight Hogan's arms are to his body, and you see the relaxed right leg coming into impact. He's definitely on the left pivot point, easily by now way forward with his weight coming right in just prior to hitting the golf ball. It's kind of an interesting view right here to see a weight shift and hip action. Hits the golf ball, and what I like to see here is the extension of the arms. You can see how both arms are extended out to the target. He's rolled off the right foot. This is again just a short iron. Hogan had tremendous extension, a very wide follow through, and you can see it here how wide that is. And the other thing you'd look at is the right wrist, how it's turned over. Right arm is rotated, and he goes to a nice short finish. So this is sort of a punch shot, 3/4 shot on the driving range. (1967) Ben Hogan with about a 5-iron right here. We do point out some wonderful things here. As we take that club away, you can definitely see with his hands and the club going away as a unit. There's no independent action there with the wrists. So you see club, shaft, arms, hands, all the way together. And again, something right here that is sort of misunderstood. I've heard a lot of contradictory information right here, but you can look at it for yourself. I mean, there's some width right there. Now at this stage, he really starts to set that golf club. Look at the brace in those legs right here. Really winding the upper body against a braced lower body. And you can start to see the early move with Hogan right there. The hips leading, or the lower body leading. Watch him get over to his left leg here. Look at that move. A nice trailing golf club. Of course, this is why people want to watch Hogan hit golf balls right here, because it's just so magnificent to watch. One of the most copied golf swings in the history of our game. We've learned so much just by watching it. These films right here, though, nobody's really seen. Look at that right foot slide, even on the iron shot. That's how hard he's driving forward. Look at this picture right here. Very interesting right here, where you can see the right arm and the shaft almost in one line, and that's continues. Look at that. That's a great picture right here. Look at this extension. It's almost one unbroken line to a very wide finish, and then nice and relaxed at the end, where the club comes down really right here, almost at ear height, looking right at the target. Wonderful swing. Here's a very interesting shot of Hogan's lower body, his hands on the golf club, and the shaft at address. You can see how he lines the golf ball up towards the toe end of the club. And he has a slightly closed stance right here. Again, this is 1967, when he needed perhaps a little more pivot to his swing. I'd say this is a long iron. And then see how he slides the club out to the center, more toward the golf, just before he goes. Now, again, this is a handheld camera, but we can still see some very interesting things. One thing is, Hogan never took the club outside with his hands and arms. You can really see that there. And I have heard a lot of teachers talk about getting the club out. You can see here Hogan's hands definitely stayed in. The club head stays out in front of him right here. The club does not whip to the inside at all. And you can see a little motion in his knee again. So now we're looking at footwork here. It's just shot pretty much right down the target line. A lot of leg action there. And then one really great thing about Hogan's swing that sometimes is not discussed is how he returns the shaft right back to its address position. Look at that right knee, the right foot, how he's pushing off right there. This is just before impact, just before. We don't have the greatest stop action photography here, but just after. You can definitely see his right foot, and then the very relaxed legs coming right up on the right toe, and the knees coming very close together at the finish. Some really good things to look at for your golf swing. Here's a very interesting view of Ben Hogan in 1967. This is an older Hogan, but it points out a couple of really great things that have been widely misunderstood. And one of them was the length of his backswing. So I wanted to show that. The other thing early on is the move into his right leg. And let's just replay that again. And you'll see this. Look at the width of his backswing and the obvious little shift into the right leg right here. No reverse pivot there, folks. Look at the space between his knees. A lot of resistance in the lower body. That club right on plane, going back. It's going to lower as he returns the shaft. We can't really see that from this angle, but you can get the picture. Now look at this for the length of backswing. Remember, Hogan's 55 years old right now in this picture right here. So that's at least a parallel, maybe just slightly beyond parallel. So much for the real short swing, or shortening the swing. I mean, it's pretty clear right there that he's got this club all the way to parallel, a little bit beyond. Look how that lower body is pulling this golf club, and the width he has between his hands and his body. There's no hint of throwing that golf club or trying to do anything with the hands. He has completely retained the angle starting down. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention was this right foot, and watch how Hogan slides the right foot. A lot of really great players notice that. Not many teachers or amateurs have noticed it. I haven't really heard many people talk about it, but he slides this right foot. It's something Hogan did his whole career. And he's still smashing the golf ball. It's 1967. I watched Hogan play in 68, 69, 70. And he was still ripping that driver. He was long, and it was something I was very pleased to be able to watch.